Welcome to the Prolific Pulse Press. This is Lisa Tomey Zonneveld. I am the founder of Prolific Pulse Press, LLC. I am so happy to welcome Elliot M. Rubin here today. Elliot is just now getting ready to have his book go live, Show Me the Banksy, which is also showing up on my screen. I'm really excited about this book. It's been fun to work on and fun to read and fun to design covers, and it's been fun to work with Elliot. And Elliot, welcome to our show, and I would love to hear about you. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Elliot M. Rubin. I was born in Brooklyn. I'm bilingual. I speak English and Brooklynese fluently. Uh, I was actually in the furniture business my whole life. Uh, and when I retired, I started to write. And I actually started with novels. And I took a class on novel writing, and part of it was some poetry. And one day I figured out poetry is nothing but a short story. It's just like a novel, but quicker. And I don't have to spend 6 months to a year sitting and re-editing, where I could do a poem and I could edit it out within a week, 5, 10, 15, 20 times. So, and it gave me a life back. And it enabled me to tell my stories, things I wanted to say. If I heard something that caught my ear, I could write about it. If something annoyed me, I could write about it. Something I liked, I could write about it. And it was just an effortless way to get my thoughts out, and I enjoy it.
Wonderful. So it's important to enjoy what you do. Did you find that you wanted to write before you retired but didn't have the time, or is this just something that came to you that, hey, this seems like a cool thing to do?
I was always creative, but I never, I would write maybe one poem a year, that way, where I would write a short story. But I was always back in elementary school, they would call me a dreamer. My mind always went somewhere else. And this poetry enables me to take those thoughts and put them onto paper, and then move on to the next one. So I've written a lot of poetry, and I enjoy it thoroughly. It opened my world, a new world to me.
That's great. I can relate to that as well. I also could be called a dreamer back in grade school. I don't think I've really ever stopped dreaming. Um, it just has come alive in the work, in the poetry and other writing, that we do. So, and you also run a poetry critique group, or groups, I guess. Tell us a little bit about that, how that came about and how that helps.
Uh, I, I I I run two poetry critique groups on Wednesday at 4 and Thursdays at 9. When I first started, a friend of mine was in a writers group from Rutgers University, and they would meet after class, and they did everything: poetry, short stories, novels, but it tended to be more towards poetry. And he asked me to come into the group, and I met a few people there, and I liked it, and I stayed with it. And the woman who was moderating it was the teacher from Rutgers. She had a PhD in literature. She was teaching it. So I learned a lot in that group. There were some excellent poets there. And then eventually it disbanded due to age, unfortunately. So, and I wanted to continue. So I started one group, but I was writing so much, I needed a second group, just because it's a way of editing and improving. And I always like to have poets who are better than me in there, and that's how you learn. And I have two groups now, and I'm in three others as members, as a member, not to run it. So I'm really in like 5 groups, and I enjoy it because you bring a poem, and you get suggestions. I don't like to call it critiques. I prefer to call it a suggestion, and it's up to the author, to take the suggestion or not. Sometimes I do. Most of the times I do, because as I said, I was not an English major. I was a business major in college. Uh, so, and that's how I learned, and now I'm trying to pass it along.
Well, that's great. It's very resourceful to do it that way. And one of the things that I hear from people, I can't afford to pay an editor, and it's going to cost me a lot of money to pay an editor. I'm in poetry editors, and I get paid for what I do. And so, yeah, I can imagine it would be kind of costly for someone to edit a whole book. Um, and they have a group like that. I mean, everybody saves money, and what's time? It's going to give you what you
Yeah,
need at the end. And whenever I've taken poems to critique groups, those are the ones that get published.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I have some English teachers. I mean, I have members in India, Lebanon, California. Uh, I had from Massachusetts, Florida, all over via Zoom, and you learn and you make friends. I mean, I have friends worldwide. My circle has expanded, and it's fun, and you get to know people and different cultures, and why not?
Why not? You have that international influence on your work can only make it better.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I enjoy it.
Do you have any aspirations of into the future of anything that you're going to do differently or that you want to focus on?
Well, recently I'm starting to experiment with the beat poetry. I've
Mhm.
been reading up on the Ginsberg and Kerouac and Corso, and I'm starting to write a little like that. Uh, it's more stream of consciousness, anti-establishment. Uh, I don't write explicit sexual stuff. I just skirt around it. Even in my novels, I would say they went into the bedroom and then I changed the scene. I
Right.
live in the imagination. I don't think you have to be explicit. Uh, the more you leave to imagination, the worse it gets. But we're all human, and that's where I'm at. And just to continue to write, uh, I look at it as a legacy to leave my children and grandchildren and future people as progeny, whatever you want to call it. Uh, they'll find out about me through my writing.
Exactly.
So that's another reason I do it.
Now, are any of your children or grandchildren writers?
Uh, Unfortunately, no, but they are artists. I have two daughters who are both artists. One is a board certified art therapist, and her two daughters are artists. Uh, they're coming along. They're teenagers, but they're gifted also. It ran in my family.
Wonderful.
My grandmother was an artist, and my father was not, but he could draw, and his brother was an artist. We were all in the furniture business, and my uncle would sit on a recliner, and there was a carton next to him, and he would draw a sailing ship with the sails and the waves. It was beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have been an artist, really. And that went out to somebody's home in a box.
I saw I think it was on either the news or Sunday morning. I think it was Sunday morning. There was a lady who was sending out like bills to this lady every
Yes, I
month
saw that.
and decorating her envelopes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the recipient, her name was Melody something or other.
Hmm.
So she started to write the clef and the treble on, and then it got more involved. And she would take an envelope home and draw colorful pictures. It got to the point where she's putting tinfoil on it, and then she would write the. So, long story short, finally they met up, and now in a coffee shop in wherever town they are, there's a whole collection on the wall, framed. It was amazing. You never
Amazing.
know.
Just because somebody just got intrigued by that name, and then it just went from there. I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful. It's very touching to me, that kind of stuff. Okay, well, I would love if you would share some of your poetry with us.
sure. I happen to have the book with me. What a coincidence! And I'm going to read the title one, which is "Show Me the Banksy."
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, here we go. Quickly, he gathers up the tools of his trade, brushes, palette knives, and paints, to pack them in a case before anyone awakes. An ignored wall no one ever notices is now a canvas, a work of art, a simple statement painted while no one watches or even cares. As the sun comes up, a passerby sees it, then another. Before long, a crowd gathers. News media arrives to take pictures, write about it. Soon its image goes viral. The lonely wall is now famous. People stand across, admire it, where once they pass by, absorbed in their own thoughts. Little do they realize the image is of them, a group of people staring at a wall.
Well done.
And
What
then,
do you have you seen Banksy's work in
yes,
person?
it's in the news. I never saw it personally, uh, but he made the news when they sold that picture for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then it disintegrated before your eyes. So that's really what I think caught the eye of everyone, that something like that would happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to, look, he says something with each picture.
Yes.
His pictures are poems, they're
Mhm.
stories, and
You're
that's
right.
so I admire it. I have another one if you'd like.
Sure.
This is called Mints. This this is based on a true story. Uh, Mints. If for a breath mint, she could have been my forever. If for a breath mint. I remember her so well. My sister's girlfriend, both of us teenagers, both of us with newly discovered hormones raging uncontrolled. That night, Sis went to bed. Her friend and I didn't. We stayed up late, exploring, feeling new experiences, killing innocence. Next morning, she came in my room to kiss me good morning. If only for a breath mint, she could be my forever.
Nice twist there at the end.
So I do stuff like that. There's another one that I did. I also like to play with space
Mhm.
between the one poem before that is Saragahi, September 12th, 1987. I had read about this and I figured, it caught my attention, and it's based on a true story. 10,000 Afghan fighters, 10,000 Afghan bullets race to an isolated mountain fort in the middle of nowhere to win a revolution. Rocky ground has no intrinsic value except communication between two forts, defended by 22 British sick soldiers who all died in a day-long last stand battle. Their courage, their obligation to duty is a mirror one looks in to see how honor is won by a soldier in war. And just the thought of that, there were two forts, and in between was this little fort for communications, went through it. And 10,000 Afghan revolutionaries wanted to overrun it, and there was only 22 soldiers. And they held them off for a day, and they all died. And that really, it got to me. So I wrote about it, and I did it in a poem. And that's what I do. I hear something, and if it catches my ear or my eye, I write about almost anything. And that's why I've written so many poetry books. I just don't stop.
How many books is it now?
I've published 34 books,
Wow.
and you're the first one I gave one to publish,
I'm honored.
and I'm very pleased so far, and I look forward to hopefully more.
And then you've also written your crime stories.
I've published 7 or 8 crime novels based on people I knew in Brooklyn. Names were changed to protect me, not necessarily innocent. And then I also have written 3 books of Jewish humor.
Oh,
And
that's
I go
intriguing.
around. I speak at different Jewish groups in the New York, New Jersey area about them.
Oh, nice.
One of them is Yiddle fairy tales, where I took about a dozen European traditional fairy tales and I gave them a Jewish slant with different words and concepts. So I had a very nice write-up in the New Jersey Jewish News just before COVID hit. So I had a lot of readings lined up for that. But you write about what interests you, and
Yeah.
and that's what I do with the poetry. I'm really into more of the poetry now than anything.
Yeah. Do you find that have you written any poetry that has the Jewish influence?
Yes, matter of fact, one of the books is a anthology of Jewish poems, or Jewish related poems. It's about 50 poems. I just put that out within the past year. I gathered them all together, two short stories in there and the rest of poems. And I talk about that. And it was over the years. I do it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I really am fascinated with the whole Jewish faith and the that comes from that. And um, I have you and I have one, two more, three more people who are with Prolific Poles that are Jewish faith. So yeah.
Well, I've studied Talmud now since 1986, once a week. And I've had Reform rabbis, conservative, and for the last 12 years, I've had a Orthodox rabbi. I run it through the synagogue where I was a member. And there's a lot of interesting things that you pick up, because Talmud is the textbook, and the Torah, if you think of it, is the Cliff Notes.
Mhm.
And that's where they really get into it. And you come up, certain things like in the Jewish faith, like in Islam, you're allowed to have numerous wives, except in the year, roughly about the year 1000, a famous rabbi in Europe said Jewish men can only have one wife for at least 900 years. That was about the year 1100. So in the year 2000, it expired. So now Jewish men can have more than one wife. The problem is, we are now rabbinical Jews as opposed to biblical Jews.
Mhm.
So the rabbis say, if you do something long enough, like a tradition, it becomes law. So now, although his proclamation expired, we still can't have more than one wife at a time. So, you pick up little stuff like that.
I did not know that. That's interesting. Wow. You added some more to my knowledge bank.
Oh, there's a lot there.
Well, Elliot, how about you take us out with a poem? Pick one
Okay.
more and take us out with that.
Okay.
But don't leave because I got something to say.
That's fine. Hey, this is also based on a true story. July in San Francisco, 1969. My first time here, unbearable summer heat. The tour bus stopped at the intersection of Haight-Ashbury. When the doors open, I step off to mingle with young hippies in cut-off shorts, dirty t-shirts with unshaved legs, unshaved faces, unshaved armpits, and unwashed. Strung out, walk trance-like past me, going nowhere, doing nothing, just hanging. Strolled about a little on different street corners. I saw Jesus in a white robe preaching redemption, a bunch of Mary Magdalenes at his side. Couldn't decide on a corner to visit, since they all offered drugs and love for everyone for a few dollars for a few minutes of heaven.
Wow. Use of metaphor strong in that.
Yeah. That's what you do. That's poetry.
What you do. Absolutely. Well, Elliot, before we got started, we talked about your book launch. And so we're looking at the first Saturday in August at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll get some information out about that. Everyone will see a couple of confirmations on that. And your book is up for pre-order now. And I noticed that Amazon and Barnes and Noble both have it. I expect others to follow suit. The actual release date is the 28th, as well as the ebook is also on pre-order with the same release date of the 28th. So ebooks are nice if you want to get a quick read, but getting this book in one's hands is the best, I think.
I think.
Poetry lovers tend to like to have a book in their hand. I don't know about you, but I like to read a book of poetry over and over again. And it's something I'll sit, in my easy chair and look at and ponder about versus, ebooks I tend to just kind of like speed reading through, like, fictional stuff like that. But yeah, I think this is a book that should be on everybody's shelves. And I think it's a good, just the cover alone is an eye catcher. So not that I'm biased or anything, but Elliot, thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you for having me.
And you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.